The mountains loomed, shrouded in mist and mystery. A perfect escape, I thought. Just me, the open road, and the promise of solitude. The city had been suffocating, its noise a constant pressure. I craved silence, the kind that whispered amongst ancient trees and echoed in desolate valleys. My car, a trusty but aging sedan, rumbled along the winding road. The air grew cooler as I climbed higher, the sun a hazy disk behind the gathering clouds. The trees pressed closer, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out towards the road. Shadows deepened, twisting into unsettling shapes in my rearview mirror. The further I drove, the more isolated I felt. Cell phone reception had dwindled to nothing, leaving me alone with the whispering wind and the unsettling stillness of the mountains. Darkness crept in, slowly at first, then all at once, as if a curtain had been drawn over the world. I switched on my headlights, two feeble cones of light against the encroaching darkness. A jarring jolt, followed by a sputtering cough, and then silence. My car coasted to a stop, the engine dead. I tried the ignition again and again, but only met with the same disheartening silence. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked at the edges of my calm facade. I was stranded, alone, in the deepening darkness of the mountains. Outside, the wind moaned through the trees, an eerie, almost mournful sound. The headlights flickered and died, plunging me into absolute darkness. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I fought it back, forcing myself to take deep, calming breaths. I had to think. I rummaged in the glove compartment for my flashlight, its beam a weak beacon in the oppressive darkness. The map offered little comfort. The nearest town was miles back, the road ahead desolate and unknown. There had to be somewhere, some sign of civilization. Then through the darkness, I saw it. A faint light flickering like a distant star far down the road. Hope surged through me, a lifeline in the sea of despair. Gathering my courage, I locked the car and started walking, the flashlight beam dancing erratically ahead of me. The road was rough, littered with stones and fallen branches. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the rustle of unseen creatures and the distant hoot of an owl. The light, as I drew closer, resolved itself into a warm, inviting glow emanating from a single window. A house. It stood back from the road, a dark, rambling silhouette against the night sky. Relief washed over me. Surely whoever lived there could help. Hesitantly, I approached the house. The porch creaked ominously under my feet. I knocked, the sound loud in the stillness. A moment passed, then another, before the door slowly creaked open. A woman stood framed in the doorway, her face half shrouded in shadow. Her eyes, though, were visible, dark and intense, regarding me with an unnerving stillness. "Help you?" she asked, her voice raspy, as if unused for a very long time. "My car?" I stammered. "It broke down. Could I use your phone?" She stared at me a moment longer, then stepped aside. "Come in." The interior of the house was dark and dusty, lit only by a flickering fireplace. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of dampness and decay. She pointed me towards a dusty rotary phone on a small table. As I dialed for the tow service, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me. The woman said nothing, just watched me with those unsettlingly still eyes. A floorboard creaked somewhere deep in the house. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. I could have sworn I heard a whisper, soft and indistinct, coming from the shadows beyond the reach of the firelight. I finished my call and turned back to the woman. "Thank you," I began, but she cut me off. "They won't come," she said, her voice flat, emotionless. "Not tonight, not ever." Before I could question her, she turned and disappeared down a dark hallway, leaving me alone in the oppressive silence of the house. The tow truck driver arrived just as the first rays of dawn were breaking through the darkness. He was a burly man, his face weathered and lined. When I told him about the woman and the house, a strange expression crossed his face. "There ain't nobody lived in that house for over 50 years, he said, his voice low and grave. "Folks say it's haunted, a whole family wiped out in a fire. They say their spirits never left." He looked back at the house, his eyes narrowed. "You're lucky to be alive, Mum." I turned to look back at the house, but it was gone, swallowed by the morning mist. Had it all been a dream, a figment of my imagination, fueled by fear and isolation? As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was leaving something behind, something cold and unseen, lurking in the shadows of the haunted farmhouse.